Hi Will and Mike and Ben. I'm going to try to make a video here to give you some of the information that I would have given you if we had been able to meet a couple of weeks ago. When we think about academic assessment, obviously all of us try to assess what we're doing in our classes all the time. We try to assess if what we're doing is helping students learn as well as we hope they will, and we tweak what we're doing if we see something that isn't working very well. And best case scenario, we try to do that all the time in all of our classes. But this is a little bit different. When we talk about academic assessment, we're talking about not doing formal assessments or formal written documented assessments of every single class. We're talking about selecting program learning outcomes, and these are broad categories of outcomes that we expect students will be able to do by the time they complete the program. And then we link those to student learning outcomes, or sometimes called course learning outcomes, because they are linked to specific courses. So let's take a look at how that works. And I'm just going to show you a little bit of information from the business department and from one of my classes. Not every department does this exactly the same way. So you'll see here that we have a spreadsheet, and this is for our associate degree in business. I use this one because it's the shortest one to look at. We look at our program outcomes as being introduced in a class with no formal documented assessment. And then the second level is application and analysis, and this is where we do assessment, and this is the place where we do assessment for associate degree programs. And then we look at a third level, just called mastery. These terms come from Bloom's taxonomy of learning, and here we assess more at the bachelor level. So the first thing we have to do is come up with program learning outcomes. So we have, for the associate degree, 6 program learning outcomes. And then, because some of our classes are general education courses for non-business majors, we also assess some of the educated person outcomes. And so I have got those listed here, the ones that we assess. So I am going to pay attention to this one here. This is our program learning outcome 2, which talks about written, oral, visual, interpersonal skills that we want students to have. And then also we have a team skills down here. But if we go with this one, we don't do the written part, but we do oral, visual, and interpersonal communication. So if you come up across here, you'll see that this is the course that I teach. It's interpersonal and oral communication. And we introduce and do analysis and application at this level in this course. Now you'll see that there are other courses where we simply introduce an outcome here. This is exploring business and entrepreneurship. Then we come over here and introduce and assess with application and analysis, and this is principles of management. So we have mapped across here any courses where any of these outcomes are assessed. So let's see where we go from there. So we'll look next at my course outline. This is the course outline for interpersonal and oral communication. And you'll see here that I have 7 student learning outcomes or course learning outcomes in this class. But and obviously I assess all of these. I the students do assignments that relate to all of these course outlines. However, not to all of these course outcomes. Of course, not every single one of them maps to the program learning outcome. So if we see here, this one maps to the educated person outcome and a program learning outcome. The same here, the same here, and the same here. We're going to look at this one. I'm going to show you how this one maps through. So this one says research, develop, and give an oral presentation to an audience, promote an idea or product, design and produce visual aids. So this fills the requirement for educated person outcome 1 and our program outcome 2. This is the course outline. Now we'll take a look at my syllabus for the class, and you'll see that I have simply brought those course learning outcomes over here onto my syllabus. So you'll see the same thing. So again, it's this course outcome, student learning outcome 7 that I'm going to be talking about in this video. If we look now, and this is just the way that I set this up. This doesn't have to be the way that probably nobody else sets it up exactly like this. But this is an assessment overview for the class that I'm talking about. So we assess program outcome 2, program outcome 4, and educated person outcome 1. And they relate to these course outcomes or student learning outcomes, course learning outcomes. And these were mapped again on the course outline. Then I say the expected level of assessment, 80% of students will receive a grade of an 80% at the end of the class. I come down here and show the various kinds of assignments that I give that relate to these outcomes, the evidence that I'm going to show, then, and obviously I can't do this part until the course is over. This shows the grade distribution. 89.3% of the students received at least an 80. And then I noted that the 2 students who received an F withdrew from the class, withdrew from the college. And then an action plan that says things that I want to do to make the class even more effective. And just as an example, a couple of years ago, I decided that having the students, because the students all have a cell phone with them, I had them have someone record their oral presentations and then had them watch their oral presentation and do a self-evaluation. I always imagined that that would be a good thing for them to do, but I didn't do it until I did. And when I did, it made such an incredible difference. So that was just one of the things that I could say, here's a change I made, and yes, it was a good change. Now, I will also tell you that I've made some changes that haven't been so good. If we look now, we'll see this is an assignment that I give, and that assesses oral presentations. And the only thing I want you to note here is at the top of this assignment, and I try to do this for all my assignments, I put the student learning outcome that I am trying to address in this assessment. It could be course learning outcome or student learning outcome. So again, all I've done here is just copy that outcome onto this assignment. And because it's an oral presentation, they could probably figure out what I was trying to assess anyway, but I just try to put this at the top of all of my assessments. And now we'll look at the last thing that I do. And I do this for all of my classes just because it's useful for me. I copy here in this assignment that I give the students all of the course learning outcomes. So here's another one. And have them fill in this survey and ask them to give me some responses. And this is useful, I think, for them to reflect on what they have actually been able to accomplish in the class, and it's very useful for me to look at. And again, I do this in every class, regardless of whether the class has a formal assessment, formal documented assessment or not. The way that you would start with this is to come up with some strong program learning outcomes and map those to your courses. So when I work with you, that's kind of the first thing that we'll work on, and then think about creating some assessments so you'll be able to assess those program learning outcomes as they map to course learning outcomes. And don't let that scare you, because I'm sure you do it already. You just haven't been thinking about it with this same kind of terminology. So hopefully this will be useful to you when we meet again, and we'll be able to spend time asking questions and talking with each other rather than me saying all of this. So I look forward to meeting with you.